Hi, my name is Shanna Hirsch, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our recent research on the functional assessment behavior intervention process. I'm a faculty member at Clemson University. I've been at Clemson since 2016, and I've had the privilege of working with a number of folks both at Clemson and across the country. The work that I'm about to share is representative of a number of individuals' contributions. It starts back in 2015 when we were really interested in looking at how do we increase teacher knowledge of the FBA process. And we were looking at comparing a functional behavior assessment lecture to a video. What we found over a number of different studies is that when we use multimedia design theory, the individuals that watch a video actually outperform those who watch a lecture. Now, the folks that are in the lecture still improve their knowledge, but they don't improve it at the rate that the folks that watch the video did. So what this made us think about is how do we improve those in-person interactions? Well, it starts with partnering with local districts in our work to really look at what are their needs related to professional learning. So what we know is that teachers need high quality, effective, practice-based opportunities which result in improved knowledge and practice. When we're talking about practice-based opportunities, we're looking at skills that have been documented in the literature for a number of years now. So that means we're looking at engaging folks with similar needs, addressing their prerequisite skills and knowledge. So that means starting where their starting point is. So rather than making assumptions, we use data to drive our professional learning and make our professional learning to meet the teacher's needs using lots of modeling and independent practice. We also use a lot of materials that are in the training that are materials that teachers would use in the classroom. And then we give a lot of feedback and opportunities to practice. So as we move away from lecture-based professional development, and we're using this practice-based professional development model, we're seeing it as an equalizer to making professional development more meaningful. And we've studied this, and we have found that when we use this practice-based professional development model, it's incredibly effective for teachers. And over time, we've looked at, okay, so what are teachers doing within the FBA process? So now we know, okay, we have a lever in which we can improve knowledge and practice, but what are actually happening in the FBA records? And so back in 2019, we asked that question and we answered it. It took a few years to actually answer that question, but what we found is that overall, we're doing okay in terms of addressing some of the key components in the FBA process, but we need to do better. And when we are able to match interventions to function, that is the most meaningful approach to the FBA process. So if we can identify the hypothesis of the behavior and then have that hypothesis match it to the intervention, then the overall quality of the FBA improves, and it is able to show meaningful differences across both the FBA and the BIP. So all of that to say is we've been doing this work for a long time, and we are really trying to hone in on what makes the most sense and in producing the most meaningful outcomes for teachers. So we've looked at taking that practice-based professional development model and updating it to 2024. So what that means for us is we're really adding on layers of collaboration, active learning. We're making sure that the content is focused on the individuals in the room, their discipline. So we're really honing the content to make sure that it is adapted to meet the individual's needs. And we're providing lots of models of effective practice with coaching. And it's not just a one-time thing, it's sustained in duration. And so we've been doing that for FBAs, and we've been looking at how do we support school psychologists' knowledge of the FBA process using a practice-based professional development model. And what we have seen is we can improve their knowledge, that's the K on the screen, their confidence, and their perceived usefulness of the FBA process. But one thing that the folks that we've been working with have been saying is this is not just for school psychologists. All teachers need to understand behavior, and we need to focus on problem solving around behavior and focus on minor behaviors. So all of this work has really led us to develop the function-based thinking process for minor behaviors. This work has been developed in part by the Behavior Alliance of South Carolina, and our team at the Behavior Alliance is really looking at some matching an intervention to the level of need of the student. So what that looks like is if a student's behavior is severe, then they need an intervention that is going to be intense and a high level of wraparound support. But if an intervention, if a student's behavior is minor, then the level of support should be low. So a behavior that is severe warrants a high level of support. So we've developed this 3-step process for supporting minor behaviors. Our process is not meant to replace a functional assessment-based intervention or an FBA or wraparound functional assessment-based intervention. Rather, our process is meant to be quick, systematic for minor behaviors that are only occurring in 1 or 2 settings or during 1 or 2 school routines, and it's meant to be done by classroom teachers with an accountability partner. Our process is not something that we necessarily created. We looked at the literature to see what was already out there, and Hirschfeld and colleagues back in 2010 developed this function-based thinking process. It's supposed to be systematic for defining the behaviors and selecting interventions that match the behavior. We also found that Wendy Ranke and colleagues developed the double check function-based thinking process. And so we looked at these 2 processes to determine what are the critical components, and we mapped them out, and we looked at, okay, so in one process, they're describing the behavior, but not in the other. So we're going back and forth, and these were used to develop our own process. So we looked at, what are they doing in terms of identifying the behavior? What are they doing in terms of developing a plan? And how are they assessing the plan? So we compared those 2 models along with all of that other research that our team has been doing since 2016. And we started to develop our own model at the Behavior Alliance. And so our model has those 3 key parts, and it has been iteratively developed in South Carolina with feedback from South Carolina educators as well as experts in the field. It started back in 2023, where we were piloting a very brief function-based thinking process. That process, after a month, grew based off of feedback from folks. They said, 7 pages of a document is helpful, but it had a ton of external links. So in August 2023, we built out a comprehensive function-based thinking process document or a user guide that included a ton of resources. And over the past couple months, we've been developing it. Since February, we've been running a research study to pilot this, and we're looking at comparing the function-based thinking process to an FBA. And we're doing this in partnership with different school districts in our state where they're helping design the research process and really looking at what is feasible for their teachers to do and is there consistency between the results of the function-based thinking process and the FBA. With all that said, we're really excited about our 3-step process because it includes a number of the components from Hirschfeld and colleagues, as well as from the culturally responsive function-based thinking process that Wendy Ranke and colleagues developed. And our process includes a little bit more, because what we saw is we're including a lot of their components, but we built on it to include some components related to including student voice and family input. With all that said, I'm really excited that you're here and you're learning about the function-based thinking process, but if you have any questions, please reach out.